Don Jon, which is directed by and written by and starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who was on the programme in the week we were away.
Yes, and interviewed fantastically by David
Morrissey. By David Morrissey, although you wouldn't know because you didn't listen.
I heard that bit.
Oh, you did hear that
That's
bit.
the
So
bit
you did. So when you say you didn't listen, you mean I did listen, but I'm pretending that I didn't.
I only heard the interview.
That's like I'd never. How can you? Did you you just waited until somebody said, "Okay, the interview's on now,"
Yes.
and then you turned it on, and then you turned it off?
That's right. That's
okay. I don't believe you.
I just had a car journey that lasted 10.5 minutes.
How unlikely is that?
Turned on the radio.
You're like
look,
those people that say, "I never read reviews." Like, yeah, right. Of course you don't ever read reviews. Anyway, so the story is the central character, John, is a sort of Lothario character who is obsessed with porn. And in the beginning of the movie, we see his life, which is basically a life of going out and clubbing and partying and womanizing and obsessing about porn and being unable to square his fantasy life with the realities of actual life. Starts having a relationship with Scarlett Johansson, and her character is somebody who's been raised on Hollywood movies, on Hollywood rom-coms. And the central conceit of the film is that his idea of what human relationships should be like, based on the fantasias of porn, are offset by her ideas of what human relationships should be like, based upon the fantasias of Hollywood rom-coms. Here's a clip of them in a hardware store.
Listen, you decide what color. I'm gonna meet you at the registers. Just want to pick up a few things in cleaning products, okay?
What? Where you going?
What?
Where you going?
Nah, I'm almost out of Swiffer pads. I'm just gonna pick a few up.
What pads? What?
The Swiffer.
I don't know what that is.
You're on a Swiffer?
What is that?
Seriously?
No.
Oh, babe, it's the best. You gotta try it. What do you do for your floors? You got those nice floors in your place. What do you, mop?
No.
What do you do?
I sweep it up with a broom.
No, I mean to really clean it.
I don't know, the housekeeper does it.
Oh, right. Yeah. Listen, I'll just be a second, okay?
No, but come here.
What?
You're not gonna go buy a mop right now. It's embarrassing, okay?
Oh, babe, I told you, it's not a mop. It's these pads.
I don't care. You shouldn't be doing your own housework anyway.
Why not?
Because you're a grown man. I mean, you shouldn't be cleaning your own floors.
Oh, I enjoy doing it.
Look, you know what? I'll call Rosa for you. She'll do your place.
Who?
Rosa, my cleaning lady. She's great.
Oh, babe, no. Thanks, but I like doing it myself.
What, you kidding me? Come on, you don't gotta be doing that.
Nah, babe, she won't do it right anyway. You gotta vacuum my carpet a certain way or else it looks
Don't talk about vacuuming in front of me. Come on.
Why? What's wrong?
Why? Because it's not sexy, that's why.
So you can see that their relationship is pulling in two different ways. Joseph Gordon-Levitt described it. He said, I thought a romantic comedy about a relationship between a guy who watches too much porn and a girl who watches too many romantic Hollywood movies would be hilarious and get to the point. That's how it started. There's been quite a lot of films recently about sex and porn addiction. There was that extraordinary Beebe and Kidron documentary, In Real Life, which was quite alarming. And actually, there is one scene in that in which somebody describes their relationship to this online material in a way which very eerily pre-echoes a monologue in Don Jon. At the beginning of the film, when it's basically depicting, I mean, essentially what the film is getting at is the problems of objectification and commodification in people's relationships. If you objectify people, if you come to believe that people are, objectified versions of themselves, then actually what happens is you're alienated. Rather than being a liberating, great experience, all this stuff that's out there in the net, in fact, what it does is it causes people to become completely isolated, to become solipsistic, to be unable to develop proper relationships because they are seeing everything in an objectified, commodified way. And that is actually quite an interesting idea. There have been quite a lot of films looking at that sort of thing, whether on the one hand it's... did you see the Steve McQueen film Shame with Michael Fassbender?
Nope.
Which was really extraordinary. And very much in the central character in that, his addiction to all this stuff was all to do with the kind of self-destruction. It was never to do with connecting with anybody else. And there's actually a very clear line in that as a result of that addiction, when he actually finds himself in the company of somebody who he likes as a human being, he's completely lost and he's completely out of his depth. And then recently there was that comedy, Thanks for Sharing, which was Tim Robbins and Mark Ruffalo, and it was a kind of an oddball collection of people who were all going to, sex addiction counselling. And it was very flimsy and very flibberty-gibberty and interesting only in as much as the idea itself sounded interesting, but the film itself was a little bit all over the place. In the case of Don Jon, at the beginning, it's very flashy visual style. There's all these shum, shum, shum sort of fast cuts that do this thing about the rules of seduction being offset against the ritual of going to confession. And then, and it's kind of, sort of flippant and sort of interesting, but also a little bit because it's not quite there. And then there's a third character played by Julianne Moore, and essentially what happens is the Julianne Moore character says to the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character, this is your problem. Your problem is that you're obsessed with this stuff. Your problem is that you're obsessed with this, with this completely unreal version of the world. And actually, you need to rethink your relationship with the world and with people. And it's one of those interesting cases in which when Julianne Moore is on screen, the whole film sort of seems to recalibrate itself around her. And as her character becomes more important, and as his relationship with her character becomes more important, the visual tics, the sort of the tropes, the repetitive cuts, the repetitive sequences, which define the beginning of it, fall away, and the film falls into a much more natural rhythm. And of course, it's it's stylistically organised in this way, so that essentially what happens is that the surface of the first half of the movie sort of breaks down and becomes much more of a sort of permeable membrane for the second half of it. So it's not without flaws. I mean, it is a little, a little too flashy and surfacey for its own good, but there is an interesting idea in there. And actually, all the time that Julianne Moore is on screen, what she manages to do is take something that could, I think, in other circumstances, be much more of a kind of much more of just a flashy and slightly flippant look at something. Because obviously, it's broadly comedic anyway, and give it much more substance, much more. I mean, she is brilliant. She is, and there's a couple of scenes in which you just see her on her own, and she's in a magnificent screen presence. And I'm very aware of the fact that the minute she's on screen, I think, okay, fine, we're in safe hands. I know where we are, and that's the role that her character plays is the living, breathing, three-dimensional, real person who's actually engaged with the world, and therefore is the person in whom you are going to invest some kind of interest. And she does that terrifically well. So I think it's a decent directorial effort. It's well written and snappy. As I said, the style settles down, and the more Julianne Moore is on screen, the more you're able to like it.